Well, some of you might have been wondering what happened to me. Well, not really that much. There was just Team Cup on and I was busy benching and didn't really have time for YouTube. But now the Team Cup is over, let's go over some scores from some other benchers. I'm not going to be going too much into detail on my scores here, just some other stuff that I find interesting and, well, maybe you can take away some background knowledge on ancient stuff. I'm not going to be going over the modern scores at all, probably. So let's start off with the AMD stage and go straight into DDR1. Now, I'm on OCN, and well, as you can see, we came in second here. So let's have a look at the scores that won WEC this stage. First off, Sparks with a Opteron 154. Now this is one of the ideal CPUs here. You would want single core Opterons, so a 156, 154, 152, 150 and so on. Ideally the higher multi ones because they're usually better, and because on socket 939 the higher you go with PCLK, the worse your cold bug gets. So basically, if you have a locked multi-chip, you want the highest locked multi-chip you can get, so you can run the lowest PCLK. So that's 260 for 3.6 gigahertz here. He says minus 45. So pretty decent cold bug for a 939 chip. And yeah, the rest of it is just PiFast and your usual WinBond timings. Here you have 1 gig of WinBond, so 2 512 max sticks, and running C2, 1T, low idle timer, just usual stuff really. But the other funny part about this submission is his mounting. We have a Fusion pod, so that's one of Roman's older pods. Mounting bracket on top of what I think is a T-Rex. So that's an interesting way to make a pod fit that is not designed for 939. So the other sub that really won them that stage is Raiden's sub here with a Opti 152. He's on dice, and what I kind of find strange here, if this loads, is that the CPU-Z says 1.45 volts. Now I doubt this is real. I think this is just going to be the width that it's displaying instead of like actual voltage, so that's fine, because on dice you would usually want to run actually probably higher voltage in some cases than on LN2, basically to raise the internal temperature of the core to avoid cold bugging. A lot of chips have cold bugs around dice temperatures. Now 152 again, relatively high multi, but I don't think he's PCLK limited here because he's running 12.5, and I think this chip goes to 13. So I think that's just core limit here. Again, usual WinBond stuff. So yeah, that's how you win the stage. You have two of those Opterons. Now, unfortunately, you can't really easily buy those Opterons for reasonable prices these days anymore. So that's probably why all we had in terms of ideal Opterons was my score on a 152, and well, nobody else had a chip. So let's move on to DDR2. Now we won this stage, not too much in for it, just really for phenom X-Force, and basically everybody ran phenom X-Force. Now Wake basically got a solid average as well here. Surprisingly only run one Black Edition chip, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, usually those chips top out around 3.6 and or thereabouts, and they have cold bugs of around 0 degrees. So this is kind of the annoying part about these. But there is one special score I want to mention here. That's Bullshooter here on a 9850, 9850 non-black, as you can see, 12x multi, and running 310 megahertz PCLK. Now this is really strange to me because on this rig pic, you can see an iced over pod. So this thing is running sub-ambient, sub-zero even, I mean, at 310 FSB. I don't think I've ever had one that did this. My chip needed basically me to run 200 FSB flat to get proper cold temperatures. So 310 FSB at such a low temperature is honestly pretty impressive. And because of that low temperature, obviously, if you can do the FSB, the core is going to be pretty good. So 3.7 is way above average for a first gen phenom chip. Okay, let's see DDR3. Now, this 7-zip AM3 plus stage. The real challenge here was that, as you can see up here, it was 4P. So you couldn't just disable 4 cores. You needed a motherboard that can run 1 core per compute unit. So basically a gigabyte board or a Crosshair 5 formula. Now, here we got the stage, but none of our scores are really that impressive. It's just, actually Unity is really nice. Let's look at that one. 7.6. 7.6 is really nice, yeah, for a benchmark that runs on 4 cores. Now, this is FX, so just full pot the thing and go from there. I think his score would have been probably better if he ran the memory at lower clocks and tighter timings, so something like hypers, because this bench seems to care a lot more about latency for memory than it does about bandwidth. So yeah, otherwise than that, it's just we had 3 LN2 scores. But here we have score from WAG, and I just put it in here because it's absolutely insane clock, I think, for a FX to run 7.8 gigahertz plus with 4 cores. I'm sure this chip does 8G valid easily. So yeah, nothing special here, just the Crosshair 5. See, he is running, I think that's hypers. That should be hypers, yeah. And that Encore seems surprisingly low, but besides that, this should be good for Effie, yeah. I mean, he doesn't need Effie, he has insane clocks. So yeah, that's probably the most impressive score from that stage. Let's move on to DDR4. Now I'm just going to blitz over those more modern stages. Now basically DDR4 was quad-core AM4 CPUs only. So you would run a 5300G, 5350G, 5350GE, and so on. Geekbench 6, not really a fan of the bench because you have to be constantly online for it, and well, sometimes it forgets that you're logged in, and then you don't have a name on your score, and yeah. I would prefer if you could get a cheap license like with the older Geekbenches, but nope, it's $100 or something stupid like that. Y-Cruncher, DDR5. I have absolutely no idea. I have never touched a AM5 CPU so far, so absolutely nothing I can say about that. But Team Hardware Reactor did very good, and they ran ideal hardware, which was 7950X, 7950X3D, 7900X, 7900X3D. It was also clock limited, so in my opinion, boring stage. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but yeah. Let's move on to Intel. Intel DDR1 was Celeron valid. Now, as you can see, the Italians won that one, and I'm actually kind of surprised we let them take it away from us basically. But yeah, they got overall nothing completely crazy, but they got really good average scores. Let's see. 4.7 on a what was this? 2.8 gigahertz, so the highest been Northwood Celeron. You can see I had a higher score sometime, I don't know. But yeah, pretty good for Cascade. Can't say much about it. It's just valid, to be honest. So this might be a P4C or P4P. Looks like P4C. Doesn't matter, P4P, P4C. Usually you want a P4C because it's slightly more efficient for like SuperPi and PiFast and stuff. But again, it's valid. It's basically just the challenge to get the modern version to validate anything close to what the older ones did, because it's a bit heavier on the CPU. So yeah, again, Cascade on and the 2.4. Can't say much about it. I mean, it's decent. It's definitely very decent. But again, it's valid. And with the modern stuff, you're not gonna get the golds there at all. No chance, basically. If someone came before you on a older version. Now, let's close this. This is the SuperPi 32M Prescott 1M stage, so 775 Pentium 4s. First gen 775 Pentium 4s. And here, basically, as far as benching them goes, it's reasonably easy. They usually do not have a cold bug. A lot of them have a cold boot bug, but if you can get it to full pot, it's probably going to run full pot pretty stable. Here again, we won it, but let's go over the most impressive submission here from Bullshooter. This was actually the SuperPi 32M Prescott 1M world record for this. So not only for of the 550. Now if I go in here, obviously, let's do it. Yeah, this is 630 is a 2M chip, and I subbed later. So for like a solid 2 weeks or so, this was the fastest ever Prescott 1M score out there, and on a X48 board, which I didn't manage to get proper efficiency on. So it's I would be kind of curious how he managed that, to be honest. X48 and those Pentiums didn't really get along in my opinion. I ran a 975X, so one of the earlier chipsets. I think the one that came out with the Pentium would have been 955X, but that's a bit too old and also doesn't really clock that well. Neither FSB nor MEM. So yeah, let's go on to 3D11 physics on DDR3. Now this is Sandy Bridge, so Sandy Bridge i5s at that. So basically, you want the two unlocked chips, so 2500K and 2550K, and it's 3D11 physics. So at the beginning, basically, we put a lot of effort into getting ideal chips. So 2500 locked and 2450P is also a locked chip. But now that the stage is over, I think actually you would have been better off binning IMCs of something like a 2400 and maybe a 2500, just common chips basically, because this benchmark really does care about memory. You need both tight timings and high clock, but high clock really wins out in the end. That's why you have here. This is the best submission in the stage overall. 2500K. I think on LN2. Yes, on LN2. Could have probably ran single stage and gotten close to it. Unfortunately, there's no rig pick, which is kind of sad for me. But okay. And you can see basically if you can't get the highest memory divider on Sandy, so the 2133 divider to run, you're probably better off moving onto a chip, to a different chip, even if the core is slightly worse, because this benchmark really cares about well, memory bandwidth and memory latency. So let's see what we have for DDR4. I think something boring. Yep. 6 cores with no 1700 CPUs and X265. Now, another benchmark that cares about memory, but not really a benchmark uh, that I really like. So let's just skip that. I think DDR5 was again Geekbench 6. I already said I don't really like it. I don't really like it that you have to connect your bench rig to the internet or pay 100 euros. So yeah, I think we won that as well. So don't go over that too much. Don't want to just talk about OCN stuff. Yeah, just run one 2 core, one 4 core, one 6 core, and one 8 core. So basically, what you want is a G7400, so the Pentium, a i3, something like a 12300 or a 12100, and then two of the big chips, but with only the performance cores enabled. So probably ideal hardware will be, let's look at our sub, because I'm pretty sure we managed ideal hardware here. Yeah, exactly. 13600 K6P and 3900 K6P. And it's geek, so it cares about memory. Let's go to Nvidia stage. Now this is the SLI stage. I don't think anybody really subbed something completely crazy here that I should go over. Basically everything was sort of either chilled or air. Also, I hate 3D11, so let's move on. 3D Vantage GeForce 2000. GeForce 2000, great. Yeah, oh, this was the silly stage where you couldn't disable cores, so you couldn't run the P-core chips. So in theory, you would have won by running like a 12600 non-K and then overclocked it. But I don't think the stage was really well received because I don't think anybody really did super tryhard subs. And we somehow managed to win this with, I think, both me and Shaggy running 8700 Ks on either single stage or cascade. Yeah, exactly. He ran on single stage and I ran on cascade. So yeah, the idea was great, but it didn't seem to be well received. This is actually a great one. Basically, amount of subs over quality of subs in a way, because it is 5 submissions. GeForce 200 series, 3 of 3 with these socket limitations. So basically, what you wanted is a Haswell chip. Now let's look at some stuff. I think WAG actually tried. Yes, we got a nice LN2 sub, all out LN2 sub from Salty. So he actually ran Ivy Bridge E. Interesting. Interesting choice. I wouldn't have done that. I would have ran Haswell. Maybe it's better. Don't know. And a 280. Did he do anything to the 280? Looks like just normal feedback mod. So pretty decent clocks for that. 1080. Now this is 65 nanometer G200. So it's going to clock worse than the 55 nanometers. So 285. Memory is also decent. So yeah, this is pretty solid sub all around. Unfortunately, again, I guess some of the other subs were lower than ours. I don't know. And 275 on dice and dice. Decent clocks for dice. Dice is a little bit colder than single stage. It's like somewhere halfway between single stage and cascade. So bit over a gigahertz is pretty solid. And he actually ran the proper CPU as well. Yeah, I think that's that for that stage. I ran my little ePod 285. I think I did a video about that some time ago. And Shaggy also ran an absolutely impressive score. Actually, let's pull that up. That's the 260 192. So basically the lowest card in the stack up of ideal hardware for 5. And you can see his score was the second best after the 285. And he actually threw one of those Galax Hall of Fame power boards, the 16 phase monsters, at a GTX 260 that comes with a 3-phase stock. So I think that's the one of the largest upgrade in phases I've ever seen on a e-power job, except for of course if you run a e-power on like GT210 or something and just sort of hardware attach it. But like on a full size card, that's pretty hefty upgrade, and the clocks reflect that. So the memory is not that great on that card apparently, but the core 1140 for a 65 nanometer G200 is absolutely crazy. So yeah, GeForce 200, GeForce 4. Now this thing, I actually didn't expect as many people to try hard this as much as they did, because GeForce 4 Ti cards cost ridiculous amounts of money on eBay, and they're pretty old. So like a Ti 4400 or 4600, they go for 200 euros plus. And yet people still ran LN2 on here. So let's check that out. Actually, Griff didn't ran LN2, but I have his sub in here because it's pretty impressive. It's 25k. Now I'm not sure why it's in quotation marks only 25k, because I'm pretty sure with this memory clock you should get like 25 300. So I think he probably would have been able to do a first place. But if this submission date is the date he benched, he probably just wanted to get stuff done before the competition ends, because this is 2 days before the end of the competition. So I understand that he didn't tweak every last bit of it. But with 320 megahertz bus here, his AGP frequency would have been also really high, and uh, you need that with the 4X card, because with the 8X cards it doesn't really seem to help. But AGP 4X actually sort of bottlenecks those GeForce 4 Ti cards a little bit, especially if you overclock them, obviously. Now, besides that, it just looks like normal 3D01 run. Now, I'm kind of surprised both by the fact that that's in Russian, and it is 2 tests. I'm not sure which order he's running, but interesting. He has a previous score and then 2 tests rerun. Interesting strategy. Certainly something else than I do. His teammate also did something impressive. He set the hardware gold record for the 4400, and not by a little bit, as you can see. It's 24k versus 21k here. So I think those two guys benched together. That's why I have a picture here. With the 3 cascades or 1 cascade and 2 single stages. I don't know what that is in the background there. And actually the wrong system on here. That looks like 478. And that's not all. The WEC guys also ran LN2. Here is Brutus on a 4800 SE with a quad core, which is not the ideal choice in that stage, but it's better than a lock chip, I guess, unless you run the E5800 like Griff and Onis did. So yeah, his memory clock is pretty low though. So maybe he didn't have volt mode for mem. Let's check. Yeah, I don't think he did volt mode for memory. Should have probably done that. Would have helped a bunch. But yeah, impressive that you see people actually running these ancient things on LN2. And also this is I think this might even be a reactor 3D pod. And yeah, that can cool like 20 of those GeForce 4 cards. It's pretty overkill. Okay, let's see what we have left. Okay, Titan stage. I'm not gonna go over that much. We obviously are way down here. We only had 2 subs out of 3. And is there anything here that's crazy? XP at actually an XP on liquid nitrogen. Huh. Now I can't really say much about this because I have no clue what these cards are supposed to do. But I find it quite amazing that you actually would bother to run LN2 on the Titan and not worry about killing it or reselling it like I'm going to do with my card I just bought for the competition. So let's see, AMD GPU, Fire Strike. Now I know a bunch of people love this stage. I didn't really love it, and yeah, I mean it's Hawaii. It's a bit of a pain with cold. Needs the display out rail, so 0.95 as you called it, rail volt modded, so it gives you a picture on cold. Otherwise, you just get a black screen. But other than that, yeah, this looks pretty impressive. I think that's the only 21K in the whole competition. Lightning and 3900K. Okay, that's just standard modern stuff. Yeah, I mean, I ran about 1300 megahertz or so on chilled water. I couldn't be bothered to run L2 on this, to be honest. Just too much of a pain. Now, next stage is actually a CPU stage in disguise. Now, this is a crossfire stage with BART scores. So you want a or rather two 6870s, 6850s, and 6790s. And I'm pretty sure WEC also got that. Yes. So we got ideal hardware here. Now here there's only really one score I want to specifically mention. That's tech tested Matt's score. And well, I already said it's a CPU stage. So the impressive part here is the CPU. The GPUs are, I don't know, at air and seem to be average samples. But his CPU does almost 6.2 gigahertz for 3D06. And that's how you get 35K plus with cards on ambient. And yeah, I don't think that's right. I'm pretty sure if that was right, the CPU would be dead by now. But yeah, besides that, absolutely amazing job here. High Encore, high core. Basically, he realized that this stage was a CPU stage and he ran the CPU properly on LM2 and got the best score in the stage. Let's move on to the next one. 3000 series. Now this one here is, I don't know, I don't like CloudGate. And to make it worse, you had to get a valid link. And for some reason, for CloudGate, the CPU test is harder on the GPU than the GPU test. So you would pass GPU tests every time, would be happy that you have a nice score, and then it crashes in the CPU test. So yeah, I don't like it. There's not really anything crazy in here, I think. Actually, let's see. Yeah, we got something here. We got Mike with a 3850 and pretty good score. Yeah, just run the card on Island 2. I don't even like the 3000 series, so if I sound unenthusiastic about this, yeah, that's because I am. Let's move on to something I actually looked forward to a bit more. That's the HD 2000 series stage. Unfortunately, that wasn't really that much competition in that stage because it seems like those cards are pretty rare. And basically, ideal setup would be 2900 XT 2900 Pro with a 512-bit memory bus and 2900 with a 256-bit memory bus. Now, you want, in any case, you want three 2900 cards. In our case, that was a GT, a Pro 256, and a XT. Now here we have Shaggy again with a properly LN2 card. Now I'm pretty sure the limitation that you have to use a dual core chip here held him back, because I feel like if he had a proper chip, like modern platform, he would have gotten that hardware gold here. But it's still pretty impressive, 1200 MHz. The memory seems a bit low, but the core is really solid. Also, these cards don't display clocks in GPUs, which is always great. That's why there is AMD GPU clock tool. I think I used something else for it. So yeah, AMD GPU. Let's do iGPU. iGPU. A lot of people complained about that stage, but I honestly kind of enjoyed it. It's Intel GMA, so the stuff you have integrated in the North Bridge of some older 775 boards. And it's not the good GMA, so like G41, it's the 30 series stuff. So let's see, Knox with a chip on single stage. Now I actually LN2'd my board, but it didn't really help that much. And with these things, you also need BSL mods to basically downclock the stock FSB of your CPU, because the divider or multiplier rather, the iGPU runs on is derived from your stock FSB of your CPU. So this E8600 was probably BSL modded to run at 266 MHz instead of 333 MHz FSB. So basically, like the tape overclocking stuff you see with a lot of, I don't know, on YouTube with Q6600 and stuff, but like in reverse. That's how you get proper IGP clocks here. Also, you need one specific driver, but yeah, that's easy. Just copy whatever the top score runs, because I'm pretty sure the WAC guys ran the wrong driver, at least on this one. This one should be the correct one. Looks decent. And yeah, Heaven Basic, basically run a dual core APU. I don't think we had that special cores. Actually, Unity is really nice. That is proper stuff. 2 GHz on the IGP. I tried to get anywhere close to that, and not a chance. I think I topped out at around 1700 MHz. So yeah, Heaven also. If you run Heaven, you have to set LOD, and I only learned this Team Cup that you can apparently set LOD on the IGPs as well. For some reason, I was under the impression that IGPs had different set of drivers, but no, you can set LOD on this as well. This one here is just, I don't know what we did here or what anybody else did here, and let's see if there's any LN2 stuff here. This might be LN2. No, it's dies. But yeah, this was gathered together a bunch of DDR4 Intel chips that have IGPs. I've honestly no idea what is the ideal hardware here or what people ran that would be impressive. So yeah, sorry about that. Actually, here I had another score prepared from One Wolf for the AMD IGP stage, because yeah, he ran dice and he also can't be right. 1437. GPUs, he also kind of doesn't report the right clock sometimes. But yeah, basically anything above 700 is pretty hard to get on these. So that's why I included it here. And also because the commitment of actually running dies on an IGB. Okay, DDR4 AMD integrated. So 5000 series Shenzhen and Renoir APUs exactly. This would be 4000 series. Don't have any idea how this works, so I'm not going to comment about it. And we got one last little category, the memory stages. Now, I really looked forward to this one, but then nothing worked out. As you can see, overclock.net here, down here, third place, and like 40 megahertz less than the top score now, 30 megahertz. Well, basically, uh, the way to do this, let's take TerraRaptor's submission for a example, is to get a Intel i845 board, so a Pentium 4 board, first gen, that has SD-RAM, and set the, what is the divider exactly? 3 to 4 divider exactly, and basically go up as far as you can go. You're actually going to reach the limit of the memory with this, whereas with socket 370 you're going to reach the FSB limit of the board or the CPU first. Now, unfortunately, I bought an ASRock board for this stage that's said in the user manual on the internet that it had the 3 to 4 divider in BIOS. It does, you can set it, but it doesn't apply anything. So yeah, then I ran my Asus P4 P4B board, and that one just kind of sucks. But yeah, this is impressive stuff. Now, it would be impressive stuff if he didn't have the overall SD-RAM record on the same board. So basically, I think what he did was just put up a sort of easy score with the 349 if you can run almost 10 megahertz higher. But yeah, still impressive. And yeah, that's it for this stage. Obviously, I ran my P4B here. It's a huge pain because you have to basically, this is a multiplexer for the SM bus on this thing, and you have to basically manually switch between the chipset being hooked to the SPDs on the memory, uh, the clock gen, or the GPIO. And you have to switch it to the clock gen to get control in software, so ZFSB here. So that's a huge pain, and also I obviously e-power it, but that was for another thing where actually the CPU mattered. Here you could get away with the stock VRM easily. Okay, PiFast. Now, I was hoping for a bit more competition here. Usually the not exact in round guys are really good at 478, but I don't think they really benched this time on 11.2, so that's the 48 here. But the Italians did, and that's actually Graves. Uh, I just saw that. That hurts. He subbed that, and he doesn't have a competition background. Yeah, that must suck. Anyways, his score here is pretty impressive because it's really high FSB. 326 through PiFast is not easy. Now I know he binned boards, and this is probably one of the binned boards, to be honest. Also interesting choice of memory. I mean, those are win bonds, but like, why would you run the fancy stuff with the LEDs? It doesn't help you. But yeah, for Cascade, this is pretty decent core. Uh, the 3 gigahertz chips and like uh, 3.2 and 3.4 have way better cores on average than the other stuff. Now, I found a crazy 2.8 gigahertz chip, but you actually have to bin for those, and actually you might have to bin for something like that as well. But for LN2, you wouldn't need to bin many 3 gigahertz chips if you had a board that does the FSB to reach 4.9. And he says CPU limited as well, yeah. So it's just a cascade, and his bin board probably does way more. Yeah, that's that stage. 3D11 physics. Now again, pure memory benchmark, but this time with a twist. You have to use 1 gig, 2 gig, and 4 gig. And one of the reasons why we are so far up here is that I don't think any other team realized that the reason your that you can make your 1 gigabyte score not suck by running high LOD. Now, using LOD in a CPU benchmark is strange, and the only reason I kind of discovered that tweak is because I just used the OS I used for something else and booted up, and it had LOD set, and it was pretty decent. And like after I got this pretty decent score, I wanted to set up a new OS for myself from scratch, and it didn't have LOD, and my score sucked. So that's how I figured out that LOD helps with a physics benchmark if you have not enough memory. With the 2 gigabyte and 4 gigabyte scores, I don't think there's much difference. Now, this is best score in stage, goes to Bullshooter with a 9770, 4 gigs of memory. Interesting, what did he run? Pies. Okay, so PSC probably. And 630. P5Q Deluxe, interesting choice. I would have expected X48 to be faster, but apparently P45 can compete. So yeah, there's not much to this stage except for that you need a QX9770, which is rare, a QX9650, and a third chip that is just a regular quad. So that's our lineup. Shaggy on a QX9770. I am on a 9650. Again, this score actually kind of sucks. I had a way better one, but I was running the QX9650, and well, we decided to kind of switch around the chips. So we had the ideal lineup. So I had to basically delete my 6950, I think I had, and sub this. But not too bad. Worked out really well. Now we wanted to do the same strategy here, and it didn't work out. As you can see, Ukrainians won, and the way to do the stage was to have 2 Carrizo chips. So Carrizo is sort of a weird intermediate, I would say almost experiment from AMD. Came after the normal bulldozer-based FM2 APUs, and it has way better IPC. So let's actually see. Perfect. This is perfect to show that. You have 363 at 4.5 GHz. Now this is a memory stage, so it was CPU frequency limited. Unfortunately, it didn't really care much about memory. The difference between running JDEC and like tweaking your memory was like one to 2 points. So I don't think this was well thought out, but in the end it was surprisingly fun for a stage that should have absolutely sucked and just be rerun because of these Carrizo's chips here. Now, as you can see, this chip is at 4.7 GHz and gets 363, and he's going to have pushed really hard. And here Stinger Yard down here has 396 at 4.3 something gigahertz. Now this is basically there is actually 3 Carrizo chips, so the ideal setup would have been 3, but it was clear from the beginning that whoever managed to get 2 would have basically win. And we tried to do this last minute, and we failed colossally. We only have 1 now. As you can see, my score 361, pretty sucky. I didn't rerun that much, and also I ran one gigabyte and one 2 GB stick, which is not ideal. And then you can see, actually, I think his efficiency might be better than the Ukrainian guys. And no, I don't. No. Would have need to calculate. But yeah, you can see Soest here with the 363, and our plan was basically, once we had to realize that you need Carrizos, that he runs the same chip that this chip, the 7680, and I would sub the Eflon, because the Eflon is the only Carrizo chip that you can like readily find. And well, we messed it up because we basically decided to bench on the last day of the competition, and well, we got what we deserved. Second place, still pretty good. Now, this stage here was a pretty much foregone conclusion, because I think WEG is the only team. Actually, what? Oh no, this is the 2011 2066 chip. Basically, the only team that had all 2066 chips. And Y-Cruncher really loves its AVX 512. So basically, this was AVX 512 or forget about it. And that's why we have first place here. Ideal setup is 3 times 2066 HEDT stuff. So this is the 6 core probably. No, it's the 8 core, right? There's an 8 core, there should be a 10 core. The 10 core, exactly. And then there's also the 16 core. So yeah, really painful to optimize, I know, with the quad channel, so they kind of deserved it, because I'm pretty sure they spent a lot of time on these 3 subs. But yeah, HETT stuff, nobody wanted to buy hardware for that, because it's both expensive and absolutely useless these days. It's like outperformed by regular desktop stuff like at 136K or something for like 90% of tasks. Last one, DDR5, I have no idea because it's AMD. Go to stage. Oh, this one I want. It was basically AM5 CPU plus DDR5 with a clock speed limit. Apparently you needed X3D chips for good scores here. For PiFast, no real clue. Sorry about that. Alright, here I had the 2 Carrizo ones already pre-set for myself. He actually ran, no, this is not the IGP, this is a cheapo AMD GPU, okay. Also, these Carrizo APUs, they don't run on like your usual A88X boards. They just run on some low-end garbage. As you can see here, he's running a ASRock FM2 A64M, I don't know, something. Absolute trash board, but that's what you gotta do if you want to run the APUs. The Eflon actually runs on the proper boards. Yeah, I hope you could take something useful away from this. I just wanted to get back into the YouTube stuff and do a bit of low effort Team Cup content. And there's going to be some proper videos with actual work behind them in the next couple days as well. Bye.